Hello, everyone. We are here for our LinkedIn Live this week, and we have an awesome guest. I'm pretty excited. We've been trying to get this done for a while now, and it's finally time. So, today we have Dr. Marie Gervais, and she is here to talk about productivity. And I know everyone needs to know how can they be more productive? How can your team be more productive as well? So we're just gonna get started. Thank you so much for being here, Marie. I really do appreciate it. And I'm just excited for all that will be shared. So, what I've noticed, Marie, is that your approach to productivity is not conventional. Like if we Google productivity now, we the first thing that comes up are going to be tools that we can use, software, artificial intelligence, AI now, right? Automation. However, you are using a non-traditional approach. And I really wanted to dive into that, the benefits of your approach to enhancing productivity.
Oh, well, thank you. First off, thank you for inviting me to be a part of your show. I appreciate it. It's an honor. And as far as my approach is, I think that productivity is the outcome, not the goal. That's what makes it different. So productivity is sort of in the middle or towards the end. And the goal is something that has to be much bigger than productivity. If people focus on their team productivity by saying, we need the team to be more productive, it's never going to fly. You'll have a little bit of movement and then it's going to go back to whatever people were at before. But if you focus on what's the vision, what inspires us to meet the noble goal of our products or services, how are our products or services going to make people's lives better, our customers' lives better, or our end users' lives better? That's the most important part to start with, because people will become more productive as they become inspired to work towards a goal. And if there's no inspiration there, it's just work harder and you won't get paid more. Why would you want to do it? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So that's the first part. And then the second part is that people have to know what's in it for them, which is what I just alluded to now. Because I actually had a conversation a few years ago with a potential client who I decided not to work with because I didn't like the approach. And he was facing the loss of a huge customer. And so in order to deal with it, he cut his staff in half, told them to work harder. And then he was going to give them a wage cut. And I said, so what's in it for them? You want them to just work harder and get a wage cut and do the job of 3 people and make more money for you? What's in it for them? And he said, nothing. They just keep their job. Well, if that were me, I would have quit right away. And that's exactly what happened to his company. So I went, sorry, I can't work with you. I just think we're just not aligned. Our values are not aligned. And so what happened was all his best people left within the month because there was nothing in it for them. It was just about making money for him in the company. So you can only go so long on burning everything you've got for the company. And more people are realizing that they don't want to sacrifice their whole being and their entire lives to burn out for something or somebody that they don't even know if they believe in, right? So first part, inspiration, vision, what's the noble goal? How do you make people's lives better? And then from there, what's in it for me? And if you have those 2 components, that's going to already increase productivity, because that productivity is the outcome, not the goal. And then the other thing is to create a climate of encouragement that builds capacity within the team. So if the team starts to work together because they have a common goal that they all believe in, they're working for that source of being inspired and they believe in it. And if you take a restaurant, for example, maybe their common goal is the noble purpose is to have people leave happy with a full stomach. It can be that, or it could be that, the noble goal is that they want to have employees from around the world be able to earn a living wage. That's a noble goal too. It might be both, right? So when you know what that is and you keep bringing it up to people so that they see it in front of them, and they say, what's your noble goal? And then they start thinking, well, what is my noble goal? What is that I'm striving for? Then they're starting to think, well, I want to do something for this company because they're doing something for me. So you get more of a give and take. And then the climate has to be built through encouragement. So it's like, what are you doing well? How can we improve on it? What's wrong with the system that we're not meeting our goals, instead of blaming people in it? And then asking them to learn something new. So if everybody's learning something new together, they're much more likely to build capacity as a team. They're working towards the goal together. They're learning something new together. They're involved in the initial part of the planning. They have some ownership for part of it. They report back to each other as a team. So when you report back to each other as a group, then you have more capacity. That
Mm.
actually just reminds me of a friend of mine from Rwanda. When I first met her,
Yeah.
she was the airline stewardess from Rwanda, and she left just before the genocide. And she told me that she was working towards um, building a capacity in a way that was going to help her to make her life better. But as she devoted herself to the noble goal of installing her family in the new country,
Mhm.
she ended up finding all sorts of things that motivated and inspired her. And within her team, she learned how to contribute in ways that were really significant and important for her because of her Rwandan background. And one story she told me was about her mother making her will. And she said, when my mother made the will, the way we do it is collectively. All the families gather together, and the mother says, here's a jug of milk. Everybody gets a cup. I'm going to pour the first person who's responsible to use the first part of what I'm saying gets the first part. And then she would just keep pouring milk in order. And she'd say, remember the order, because that means what you're responsible for, who you're responsible for, and when you're responsible for it, when I die. And it starts the moment the milk is gone while I'm still alive. And
Mm.
they all witnessed it as a group, and they all held to it because it was a collective decision. Isn't that
Yeah,
cool?
exactly. Yeah, the collective effort. And as you mentioned that, I remember when I just entered the corporate world shortly after finishing university, and one of my VPs had a view that you are hired to do a job, you should do the job. So so basically, we should not have to coax anybody or not trained, like they should just be delivering what they signed up to do, and it shouldn't be that we need to add anything extra for them. They should really get the job done. They don't need any additional coaching or so forth. So tell me about those resistant modes. Share a little bit about more about that. So a time when, based on you're going into an organization, you're coming in with strategies, systems that definitely will enhance the organization's productivity. However, you're meeting that resistance. Tell me about meeting and overcoming that resistance, because there's so many different views, CEOs, the VPs. How do you really get it all together when you enter in a situation?
Well, usually people that hire me are already on that path. They're not the
Oh,
most resistant, or they wouldn't even have talked to me. They're on the
yeah.
path, so they've already seen some benefits. But
Mhm.
the biggest resistance that people have is that we're swimming like fish. We're swimming in the ocean of criticism. And
Mm.
people think that the more you point out the mistakes, the better people will get. And
Mm.
that is very dinosaur. That's the
Mhm.
older than the dinosaurs. The
Yes.
more what you pay attention to grows. So the more you
Yeah.
point out the mistakes, the more mistakes people will make.
Mhm.
So if you want to improve things, then you have to start pointing out what they're doing well, getting the
Mhm.
team to point out to each other what they're doing well.
Yes.
Productivity increases, it improves. And I had a really resistant, not a resistant client, but a resistant manager in this process at one point. And
Mhm.
they were part of a manufacturing company. And this manager was considered the crustiest, most cynical, negative manager that there was. And
Mhm.
so he kept saying, this all sounds good for people who don't, know what human nature really is. But I know how human beings are, and they're all horrible. And I said, well, if that's what you expect, that's what you're going to get. So I said, just as an experiment, just try for one day, pointing out what people do well. Now, note that this manager had 150% attrition rate, meaning he lost everyone that was hired plus more people.
Yeah. Mm.
So he said, okay, I'll try it for a day, but it's not going to work. So he tried it for a day, and then he came back to the training the next day, and he said, um, they're actually they're actually doing things better. And I'm like, I don't know what's different. I said, what's different is your attitude. You don't think
Yeah.
that they're bottom of the barrel people that aren't worth your time.
Mhm.
That's what's different.
Just like that.
So the resistance can, in some places, be dealt with when people see that there are some results because the process works, whether you believe it or not. You
Mhm.
know, so it's it's sort of like trust the process. That helps. But if they're totally resistant, they're not going to be working with me, and they're not going to be moving forward. They're going to be keeping on doing things the way they have done them in the past, and things will gradually unravel until they fall apart.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And in your book, I want to talk a little bit about your book. In your book, Bringing Your Heart to Work, and please put all the links in the comments after we're finished. You talk about emotions, right? And what I found, there are different schools of thought. When I just started, and I've seen it happen, I've heard it quite often, even now in the corporate space, where you probably had a bad morning, a rough, home life situations. However, you got to shake that off when you get to work. However, you're now really changing that trajectory to say there is a place for emotions in work. So let's talk a little bit about that with your book.
Sure. Well, there's two parts. The first part is emotional regulation, which is first noticing your feelings. Many people don't notice their feelings. And
Mm,
noticing your feelings and naming them to yourself, and
mhm,
noticing the sensations in your body and naming them to yourself. Like, I feel really tight in my shoulders. Oh, yeah, I'm noticing that right now. That is the first part of emotional regulation. Once you are aware of the feelings that you have and also the sensations that you have, you start to automatically regulate them. But if you
mhm.
aren't aware of them, people point them out to you, just be defensive and say, nope, that's not what it is. Right?
Yeah,
So that means you can self-govern yourself. You want to self-govern yourself. Who wants to have negative emotions dumped all over everybody in the workplace? That would be awful. So
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, so it's emotional regulation is noticing your own emotions, your own sensations in your body. I have clients who can't feel a single thing in their body. It takes them 2 or 3 sessions until they even feel their fingertips. So
Wow.
that means then you're reacting to everything that happens to you because it's like your body is a shield against everything
Mhm.
that's outside. So it always starts with yourself, to regulate yourself. As that grows, you start to govern your emotions better, and you can see what people are going through better instead of just judging them right away. You think, oh, they might be going through something right now, or this might be bothering them right now. You could start asking questions like, so what's going on for you? Or what's
Mm,
happening in your life right now? And then it creates empathy and co regulation. So that's when I say bring your heart to work, it's about that. It's about the willingness to look at yourself, regulate with another person as an empathetic human being. And when people do that, they're much happier at work and they're not fighting against each other or against themselves all the time.
yeah. And it's a team effort too, because if you do come in as a team member and you're just not up to it, then another team member can definitely support you in certain ways. However,
Yeah,
it does
yeah.
take saying get into that level where it is seen as okay, because I believe traditionally it's just seen as not okay. You're not supposed to show emotions at work. It's just like a robot situation. That you're not supposed to feel like you're up to doing this task because you got to get it done, right? So there's so many dimensions to it.
Well, you actually can't stop it because it happens at exactly the same time. So with thought,
Mhm.
feeling, sensation, and triggers in the brain and hormonal releases, all that stuff happens instantly at the same time. You can't say, well, now I'll think, then I'll feel. It just happens automatically whether you like it or not. And the more you try and suppress everything, it's like my husband has this sourdough in the fridge and he makes the sourdough and if he forgets about it, it just squeezes out of the edge. That's what happens to us too.
Yeah.
So the more we suppress it, the more it squeezes out of the edge, and it's usually not very pleasant, big mess to clean up afterwards. So if you notice it and push it down a little bit and say, "Nice little sourdough, good for you. I'll bake you tomorrow,"
Yeah,
then
for
you're
sure.
then you're going to be okay with the whole process.
Hmm. And I know a part of your work covers career trauma, and it's not even something that I believe it's easily identified. Like you as a person might not just even realize you're experiencing that. And if you're leading a team or a company, you might not even be sensitive to other persons that are having that. So, what are some ways to really know or some symptoms to identify you're going through career trauma, you need support, or I believe one of my team members is going through that, I need to get in some support for them? What would you say are some red flags or signs that will indicate they need to definitely reach out for support?
Well, wide mood swings,
Mm-hmm.
also behaviors that are not characteristic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, a really talkative person shuts down, or a
Mm-hmm.
really quiet person is suddenly talking and talking and talking. Like those are like out of character behaviors. Those are some things. The other
Yeah.
thing is that if when people feel their performance dips and they cannot bring it back up again, and
Mm-hmm.
they feel apathetic and unmotivated, so they start to seem, like no expression on their faces at all,
Mm-hmm.
or they're just having, angry incidents over things. Those are some of the indicators. brain fog, inability to focus and concentrate on a regular basis. Everyone has that once in a while, but like if it's daily, all day, constant procrastination and inability to delegate, all of those are indicators of career trauma. But career trauma can come from like one incident that was horrible, like maybe you were assaulted at work. That could be one. Or it could be that you've been passed over for promotion 2 or 3 times. Or it could be you're being discriminated against. Or it could just be a very toxic workplace where there's nothing you can do to deal with it and you feel trapped. All of those are parts of career trauma. It affects different people in different ways.
And do you find that as you're diving into situations deeper and deeper, that there are other types of trauma that are impacting this individual, and it's like layer by layer, you got to go through it, right? Address each type and the impact.
Well, you actually don't need to go through all layers. Usually what I do is I work with one incident that's relatively fresh, because if you go right into whatever the big trauma was, this nervous system will just dysregulate and it'll feel very unsafe and you won't be able to get back again. But something similar that's fresh, but that isn't too high as far as activation. Like if you're measuring it out of a scale of 1 to 10, you don't want to be higher than say 6 or 7. That's about where you're at. And then you release the emotion from the memory, which is a process that I do with people, so that the emotion leaves. So they think of it, but they're not triggered by it. And when that happens, it's like a domino, all the other traumas start to heal. And then one will come up and going, oh, this one's still a problem. So then you might refer to that. But again, you stay within, what's the word? Like you just stay within a very narrow margin, because you don't want the nervous system to feel unsafe. If you bring the nervous system to unsafety, then it's going to dysregulate. But you still want the activation to be there. You want people to be thinking about that. It's activating in their system so that they can move it out. But you don't want it to go the opposite end. So that's usually how I work with people, because otherwise it's too hard. People can't deal with it.
And the other part to that, like with the workplaces now, and corporations, they're so diverse, different ages, different culture, and everyone will have a different view on how they can be productive. What is that process like to get it all together? Different cultures, my view of being productive. I'm productive. I don't have a problem yet till my boss might be saying something else, or my coworkers are complaining. How do you get that common ground to really move forward? Because I know it can be so many different layers, culture, experience, expectations as well from the job tasks, so forth. Yeah.
That's a great question. And really the most important part of that is for the leadership to be able to say, this is what we expect, and I'm doing it too. If leadership says this is what we expect and they don't do it, if they go, this is what we expect and they're doing it, and if they fall short, they go, I missed it this time, but I'm coming up to that. And this is the standard. This is what I'm working towards, right? And so then you can draw people back to that standard, because it's always above everybody. Nobody's perfect. That really helps. But in a lot of organizations, I find that people keep making excuses for individuals that are for themselves, and they don't hold themselves to the standard. And if leadership doesn't hold themselves to the standard, their workforce sees that very, very transparently. And they go, well, you're not doing it. Why should I?
Exactly. Let's talk a little bit about the apps and the other first go for some persons, different apps to track your time management and so forth. Do you find that there's really success with those apps, those softwares, or do you really feel that they're really beneficial with enhancing productivity? Because you don't coach and train from those. So I'm just wondering, is there a place for them? Because persons listening on, it's coming at us. I'm not going to name any names, but there's so many that are out there that are being promoted. This will help your team. This will drive your sales and so forth. What is really that place for them? Or is that like putting a Band-Aid on the situation?
Well, I think apps are great. I use a lot of them. I use a lot of platforms, a lot of apps. We have teams shared apps and things like that, and I use my own productivity apps. But unless you know what you're using it for and what you want to get out of it, don't do it. So it's like you have to go, what do I want? Well, I want to be able to check in on this. I want to be reminded about that, or I need this piece because this is the part that I'm always falling short on. Or is hard for me to do because I'm always procrastinating on it. So then once you've got that identified, then your next question is, well, how will I know if it's better? Because you're at the point where you probably don't need the app anymore, right?
Yeah.
So, or you reach a point where everyone in the team is using the app, because that I find that the hardest thing to do. Individuals will pick their own app and their own thing, but when you go,
Yeah.
okay, this is our app, everybody put your thing in, mark it as green, red, or yellow, or wherever you're at, and wow, it's like pulling teeth getting people to do it. So
Yeah.
it's like, well, then you have to go into resistance. Like, so what are you worried will happen if you put in a yellow or a red on this?
Yeah.
You won't lose your job. Nothing horrible is going to happen to you. It just lets the team know where we need to put some attention, right? So
Yeah.
once people start to realize that they're not going to suffer from it, they're more likely to give it a try, but then they have to get in the habit of doing it. That's the hard part. So, and the habit has to be dead easy and only one thing. So another thing I've noticed, people try to do too many things at once. I had one
Yeah.
company that I was working with, they introduced 6 new apps and a whole new accounting system the same
Yeah.
month. The same month. And they had 4 new hires out of a team of 10. So it's like, it's way overwhelming. No one, so I do one thing at a time, watch for it. And then people think, oh, well, you know what? That wasn't so bad. And then the next one you do is going to go more easily, but it has to, yeah, it's got to have those things. Is it solving a problem? What will it look like if it's solved? What's the team buy-in on this? And if there's a team buy-in, where's the resistance? Are we willing to try this? Usually resistance goes really down. We go, okay, let's try this for 1 week. From this date to this date, we try it, and then we check in. If we don't like it, we scrap the whole thing. People go, oh, good to know. Then they're willing to give it a try.
For sure. And I know you have so many success stories turning companies around, individuals, and I believe that we don't talk about the struggles or the failures enough, so others can learn and we can also keep learning too. So I really want you to dive in or share an experience where, like, tell us about a situation where you went in and it was just such a struggle and things just were not turning around, and why you believe that was really happening, because that can help all of us listening CEOs to realize that if I'm doing this, this is a red flag. Because it's like, sometimes you are taking the medication, but you're having such an unhealthy lifestyle. Otherwise, it's just not going to work, right? So tell us about that, please. Yeah, just an instance with that.
Sure. I'm sorry. I have to quickly
Yeah,
deal with
that's
my cold. So I can think of 2 colossal failures. Failures
Sure.
just happen all the time. I have 2 really colossal ones. And one was a company. Again, these are both manufacturing companies. So one manufacturing company, they really wanted to provide some training to their leaders, to their managers, and their managers had requested it for 3 years in a row. So they were very excited about having this, but there were no consequences to anybody doing the training, showing up for the training, being there for the coaching. So there was, like, if they did it, there was no issue. If they didn't do it, there was no issue. And the leadership didn't care what the outcomes were. And so for 3 months, I was like dying, trying to bring people in, and let's just give this a try and see what you think. And then they start on it. Oh yeah, I don't feel like doing this. And there was nothing I could do. It was a terrible contract. And I managed to sort of pull 70% of them through the program, but it was like, leading a horse to water and saying, drink, drink, drink,
Yeah.
it was awful. And I think if I were to go back and do that again, I'd say, if I don't have a meeting with the leadership and they're not interested in the results, then we're not going to even talk about this as a contract, because it's going to be a waste of your money and a waste of my time. So that was one failure. And the other one was the opposite. The company was getting such amazing results from their managers, and they were improving their behaviors and their habits, their attitudes, and their people were so excited about seeing the results that they're sharing with the other plants, with their relatives and their friends working in the other plants. This is how we got better results. Do you want to try it? And their productivity went way up, and and they were making more sales and everything. And when the leadership found out about it, they thought, well, that means we might have to do something different too, because it looks like we might have to change. They shut the whole thing down. It's like 90%. We were through the whole thing, and they're going, we're seeing really great results. And I had everything, like, I had good numbers, right? So I had everything tracked, and I knew exactly what was it. And you could see how well they were doing. And they were so scared of changing that they shut it down, even though they were seeing success.
Wow. And that's,
Really,
as you mentioned in
really
that,
busy.
yeah, and as you talk about that with the change, like I do find as humans, we're naturally resistant to change. Most humans
Mhm.
are. However, it's moving beyond that resistance, like retraining your brain, your thought process, your actions to be open to change. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't work. So another thing, as you know, we're winding down a bit in terms of some companies. They will be looking at, okay, I might have my sales are good, my, I probably have some money in the bank. However, underlying issues might just be there that are not easily identified. Well, how would you say that what would be your suggestion in that case to really identify, I need to talk to Marie? So you might not really see mood swings or so with your team, more like even at a higher level up. Because, sometimes the CEOs, they're not, with the lower level, team. So they might not readily pick that up. But are there other things that you can identify to say, there's opportunity for improving the productivity of my company here for sure?
Okay, so I think there's two levels. One is the training part, and the other one is the coaching part. In the
Mhm,
training part, you have specific goals that the company wants to meet, and you train to those goals. So
mhm.
people have to learn to become compliant to those goals within the training, and
Yeah.
it has to be something that's going to work for them. So you might need to make some adjustments as you go along. But in coaching, you're helping people deal with their own inner resistances, their own inner disbeliefs, or their difficulties dealing with each other. And so then that it's more personal. The agenda is you, what's inside of you, and how you move forward towards that. When you put two of those things together, it's extremely useful.
Mhm.
Um, if you want to identify the problem, then if you've got a training piece, the last part of the training piece that I would do before you go into coaching, the last part of the training piece I would do is an analysis of something. So the group picks a problem, something they're frustrated with that keeps coming up, and you just keep pulling it to smaller and smaller and smaller until it's something the group can actually handle. I have a good example. Can I tell you the good example?
Sure. Yeah.
So there was this there's this line. This was a good manufacturing company story. So this
Yeah.
line, and they kept having problems with scrap and rework, and they couldn't figure out where the problem was. And so together we did this kind of an analysis of what the situation was, and they said it could be this, this, or this, and that's so. Then I said, well, how do you want to test it? Because I don't know how to do that, right? How are you going
Yeah.
to test it? So they said, well, we want to test it this way, and they decided how they were going to test it out. And then I called their manager and I said, are you going to let them do this? Because if they have a way to solve it, are you going to let them solve it? And he said, yeah, I'm going to insist that they have to solve it because that's the proof that they actually learned something in the training. I went, excellent. So I gave them a whole day to solve it, to get through the whole thing and then to pilot pieces of it until they got it done. And they found that it was one small issue, but when they fixed it, it changed everything. They had no more scrap. It was a small issue, but they couldn't find it until they came together as a group and looked at the analysis. So I think that that's a great way to move forward. And now I forgot your question. Sorry.
No, but we were diving into there are times where or low productivity is really masked. Like
Yeah.
you believe
So
this is the
they had
level
high
that, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
because they had really high productivity and their sales were great, but they had too much waste. So there's always something. Is it retention? Is it complaints to HR? Is it waste? Is it complaints about harassment? Is it, like is it damage during shipping? If you're looking at a larger company, in a smaller company, it's more like, where are we losing revenue? Where are we gaining revenue? And how can we do the
Yeah.
analysis to see where the issue is? And then that's where you find the productivity. So in my case, I worked with a productivity person recently, and they're creating an app for me to improve my podcast because I have too many moving pieces that are dependent on me. So within the podcast, it goes into this app. Everybody in the team's in the app, and they all get notified when their piece is in there. And if they're late, they get notified, and I don't have to do anything with it. It's going to save me hours of time. So I didn't go, oh, I've got all this low productivity. It's terrible. I thought, what? I'm so sick of having to deal with this issue with 25 requests for podcasts every day, and and all these team members having to deal with it. And so that this solved the problem. But yeah, so look to see where there's a problem, and then there's a system that could help you to solve it. Then that's the way to go.
Yeah, and definitely that is very relevant, especially with remote work. There's some teams are now remotely working. You're not seeing every, persons daily in your team. So again, that is very helpful for situations where persons are not all in one building, because we have a widespread of that, so that definitely would be helpful and so forth. So I'll quickly ask you to share a bit of your process. So you're heading into an organization. What is your first thing, second thing? Just a quick overview of your process.
So depending on who if I'm working with a company and I'm speaking with their decision makers, usually I'm speaking to the vice president, I'm speaking to the operations manager, I'm speaking to their HR, learning and development manager, or their main HR person. So one of those three people I'm speaking to, and I spend a lot of time asking them, what do they want to see improve? What is in the way of them achieving their goals as a company, or what keeps coming up as a problem? What do they want to see improve, and what would it look like if it's better? People have a lot of trouble with that because they can point out the mistakes, but they have no idea what it would look like if it was better. So once
Yeah.
you get pinned down, then you go, how important is it for you to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And then we start talking about things like, who's going to be involved. Well, it should usually be the people that are not the bottom of the most difficult, resistant group that you've got. It should be the people that are most likely to want to do it with enthusiasm, because
Yeah,
then the others will want to join in. And
exactly.
they'll be excited about it, and it'll feel like a reward, which it is, rather than a punishment, which it's not. So we go through that and determine who's going to have the highest likelihood of success. That's really important. And then you want to make sure that you don't have mixed roles. So you don't want to have like a supervisor together with a lead hand, or because if you do that, then the lead hands are not going to talk and they won't benefit from it. You have to make sure that the roles are working together in a way they feel safe to talk. So
Mhm,
and you address some problem that's going to be solved, and by the end of the time that we're working together, that problem should be solved. So the proof will be that the problem is solved, or that you've made significant headway towards it, and you've got a system to complete that process. So
mhm,
that's usually how it works. And then when we're in agreement and we have the decision makers together about it, and they care about that outcome, and they
mhm,
want to know what the results are afterwards, then we go through the process. And at the end, I have a debriefing process with them together, so that
mhm.
we can say what worked, what didn't work, what have you noticed? Because if they're not paying attention, they might not notice anything. So if you tell them, looking for this, and halfway through you say, this is what I'm looking for, are you seeing any of that? And then we look at the end and look for it again. Then you can say, you know what, that was a good investment. we
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll want us to touch on is the importance of the follow up and maintenance. So, do you find that you've gone in, done the work, and persons will believe this is it, it ends there? They don't realize that this is always going to be a work in progress, always something to improve. What's your approach with that? Do you believe that it's a one thing, that's it, or we should always have those key touch points for your company, for your team all the time?
Well, I'm a big believer in follow up, but
Mhm.
usually if the training or the coaching has been effective, people's results will mushroom. So
Mm,
they'll already be getting much better results than what they were already. And so doing a 3-month check-in afterwards and saying, so what's improved? You're going to be surprised at all the amazing things that they're doing. Sometimes
mm.
people email me and they go, you're going to be proud of me because I've been doing this for 2 years. And I went, wow, that's great. You should be proud of you, right?
Yeah, that's
So
awesome.
like, so I think the 3-month check-in is good, because at that point, if the training is moving forward on its own, or
Mhm,
if the coaching is moving forward on its own. Now, yeah, there are some bumps in the road. It's not everybody's going to be the same, but yeah,
mhm.
I think that 3-month check-in point is a good one, especially in this world. Everything is so volatile. Things
Yeah.
change so quickly. And I used to say a 6-month and a 9-month check-in. Now I'm saying just 3 months, because you may not even have those same people there anymore.
Yeah, that's true. With turnover and changes in the company structure and so forth. Yeah. I
Mhm.
don't want to finish without talking about your TED Talk. It's so good. What are some ways, as you review your TED Talk process, that you're like, okay, this definitely helped me grow in this area?
Well, I was actually petrified to do that talk. People ask you to do the TED Talk. You can apply and pay $10,000 for it if you're approved, but I didn't do that. I just kept doing my work, and I was asked to do the TED Talk, and I was absolutely petrified. And I speak all the time, and I thought, why is this such a big deal for me? But when you do a TED Talk, it's you alone on a stage, no props, no notes, no prompters. You just have to you just have to enthusiastically speak to what
Yeah.
matters, right? And so and the more I practiced it, the worse I got.
Well, it didn't show the TED Talk.
So what I did was I worked with a speech coach.
Yeah.
There's a speech school in Edmonton, and I worked with a speech coach, and man, that was so helpful. She said, "Well, now walk in this way because when you walk in that way, this is what's going to happen. And as soon as
Yeah.
you get to this point, your face goes like that, and then you lose your audience." And I went, "Oh, I never knew." But it was very, very useful. And then she did all these speech exercises with me, and it was so good. And I thought, wow, I have so much to learn. And here I thought I was at the top of my game, and I feel like I'm at the bottom.
Yeah.
But when I did the TED Talk, I was proud that I got through it, and it turned out better than I thought. Because when I didn't even want to look at it when it first came out, I thought I'm going to look like such a fool. We're always more critical of ourselves than anybody else is, right? That looks a lot better than I thought.
Yeah, it was awesome. Would you do it again? Another one?
I don't know. It was pretty hard on the nerves.
Yeah.
It sure gives you respect. You know, you see these speakers that are up there and they're like just talking and they're on this stage and then they click here and then their PowerPoint goes up and they have no notes. They're just doing it, right? And I'm
Hmm.
going, wow, how do they do that for a whole hour? I could hardly do it for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Gave me a whole new respect for speakers.
Yeah, it is. And I do believe even the most experienced speakers do have those moments of, those tummy twirling or anxiety as they go up on stage still. It's just, yeah, it does happen.
Yeah, yeah, and people do forget stuff. They forget their words or they forget their music or they
Yeah.
forget whatever, right? So it happens, but I think if you're just authentic about it and you go, this may happen and I will not die. The planet will not open up and swallow me. I should be fine.
Yeah,
It'll
for sure.
do naturally.
So I just want you to share again situations, just a quick overview. This is happening in my company. This is happening in my business. This is even happening with myself. What should I look for so I know that I need to reach out to Marie?
That's such a nice question, Kershaw. Thank you. So if you're frustrated or not satisfied with things happening in your company, you know that's usually an area where there's a system problem. So look for
Yeah.
that. The system problem may point to you because often the system problem it starts with the leadership. So then
Mhm.
that's another thing. For yourself, if it's something that is interfering with your work, your personal life, or both your work and your personal life, that would be a good time to reach out to me for a 30-minute strategy call. We just look at what it is, what might help. Sometimes I go, oh, this free resource would be great for you. Other times I say, maybe 6 sessions would do the trick. It depends. And if it's training situation, we want to look at what you want to improve. What do you want to improve and what will it look like when it's done, when it's improved? And then that would be a good time to reach out.
Okay, thanks. And I know you support various company levels and also various individuals. So it's not where someone could say, I don't believe Marie could help me. It's just best to just reach out because you do offer such a wide suite of services to different levels and based on your experience too, right? So,
Yeah, my sweet spots are helping managers to find their managerial style and within the confines of what the company is expecting of them. So that's the sweet spot right there. The other one is working with a multicultural workforce more effectively, and then the other one is dealing with career trauma. What career wounds have been bothering you that still keep coming back? Those are my three sweet spots.
okay. Yeah. Thanks so much. What are your last words? What are, you just want persons to definitely remember Marie about this or any other last words? Because we have such a different range, a wider range of persons who are listening, different levels. So what would be your parting words?
Practice being encouraging.
Mm, mhm,
It has the biggest, most long-term effects.
mm. Yeah, that's pretty awesome because it's easy, as we spoke earlier, to just revert to the negative, revert to what's not positive. It really takes that added step, being intentional to really look for something to, encourage someone else about. And it does have a mushroom effect for sure.
Mhm. Thank you, Krishna.
Yes. Yeah, so thank you so much, Marie. I really appreciated this. And do remember to share all your links in the comments, your book, your TED Talk, and of course how to reach out to you as well for sure.
Thank you very much and have a wonderful weekend.
You too. Thank you so much. So, everyone, we will be signing off now in 3, 2, 1. Bye, everyone.